listening to Season 4, Episode 9. Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Shop. Happy New Year! I'm so happy that we have left 2020 behind us. It was a year of mixed emotions and challenges, but we got through it. Of course, not everyone did, and that is super sad, and I'm really sorry for those who have had real challenges and losses this year, but I'm not going to dwell on that. I'm going to welcome 2021 with lots of positivity and excitement for the year ahead. So, kicking off with today, if you're listening on Monday, the 4th of January, it's the relaunch of my new and updated and improved branding. Before, I've always just kind of done what I could by myself, but last year I won a competition with Tickety Boo Creative, and they have been working on my branding, and I'm so excited to share it with everyone. January always feels like a fresh start to me, but even more so this year with the relaunch of the brand. I've updated my website. I've got lots of things planned. I am going to be sharing the behind the scene and a bit of a process of working with the branding agency over on Instagram, together with Judy, who's the creative director and owner of Tickety Boo Creative, and her team. We are also going to be running a competition. Make sure that you signed up to my newsletter for that. I'll drop the link to sign up in the show notes. I'm also going to be running my Let's Talk sales course again at the end of the month. So if you are interested in having the extra accountability, learn how to sell more and how to organize yourself and how to shift your mindset so that you can sell your products better, then sign up to the waitlist. You can find all the details about the course over on my website and also the link to sign up for the waitlist. Judy and I covered so much ground in this episode, so I'm not going to do a lengthy intro. I'm going to play our chat right away. We did record this at the beginning of the autumn, thinking that it would be published between October and December, which was the original plan for season 4. However, because I moved the rebrand to the first week of January, I shifted it a little bit so that it could go out now instead. But we do mention it in the interview, so I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. And here's my chat with Judy from Tickety Boo Creative. Hi Judy, thank you so much for coming on Let's Talk Shop. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to chatting with you.
It would be great if we can start off with you introducing yourself and I guess both your businesses.
Yes, well, I'm Judy and I am a designer and optimist and proud mum of one. And yes, I have two businesses. I've had nearly 20 years experience in the commercial design industry. And after the birth of my son, I went back for a year of maternity, after my maternity leave, the agency I was working at, but I found it was quite a bit of a juggle. So in 2017, I left to go freelance, but was very lucky and picked up some great clients really early on. And those were the seeds of starting my own design agency, which is always been a dream of mine. So it was kind of amazing that it actually happened, and the timing just seemed to be right, which was great. And then after sort of working with a few freelancers to start off with in 2018, Tickety Boo Creative was actually born. And I guess what's more unusual about us, but not so much unusual now, is that we were a design agency where we really embraced flexible working and working from home. So I have a number of mums and dads and people who have their own, side hustles as well, and we really embrace that life work balance, which we still really embrace now, but I guess with the kind of situation it's not so unique with people working from home, but I guess we were one of the pioneers of it.
I think the creative industry is one of those, if you're freelance you often work from home, right? But if you work for an agency, it's all about being a team and working in the same place.
Yes, Absolutely. So yeah, and I think it was because we were set up that way, we managed to be able to make it work. And sometimes I just think, oh, I wish we could be in a room and stick loads of things on the wall and, you know, really chat about things. But we have seemed to make it work really well. And we do have regular catch-ups via Zoom, and we also have used Slack, which is brilliant for sort of keeping all the channels for the different projects, which works really well as well. And very lucky to have an awesome team that kind of work really well together. So that really helps. And then on the other side, I actually have my own, I guess it's a funny, how do you describe it? I guess it's my art business, which is where I design and create typographic prints and t-shirts and pins all around confidence and positivity and my love of vibrant colour. There's a lot of colour there. And I started off wanting to do something while I was on maternity, and I set up my company, A Spoonful of Sugar & Co. UK, and just started doing, I actually started off making lavender bags, which I loved, but didn't seem to sell very well. I sold them to friends, but the time it took to make them with profit, it just wasn't viable. So, but I loved doing it. And then, found the love of hand-drawn typography while I was on maternity leave. And it kind of went on from there, but it never really had any focus probably properly until this year, where I rebranded to Judy Andrews. So, but yes, I do both juggle both sides.
How do you divide your time?
Good question. Tickety Boo takes the lion's share of my time by far, because I work full time actually with Tickety Boo Creative, and actually I fit Judy Andrews in and around evenings and weekends currently. But I also have the amazing support of my husband, Lee, who I couldn't do this without him. So he 2 years ago took a sabbatical from the home office. He helps out with the finance side, so the bookkeeping, and he also packs all of my orders for me.
Oh, amazing.
I mean, I couldn't do it if he didn't pack the orders, because it's very time consuming. I don't realize people realize this type of business, how much time it takes to pack up all the orders. So I still do the designing, and marketing is on my radar, but I don't do enough of it at the moment. But yes, that's, I guess, how I juggle everything. And I guess on the Tickety Boo side, I have a really amazing senior team. You know, I was able to go on holiday last week, and they just, you know, ran with it all, and really confident that they did a really good job, and really excited, you know, when Sunday night had a sneak peek at all the work they'd done, and it was all brilliant work. So that really helps as well.
And that you built up this way before, you know, that has always been the backbone, that you work from home and it's flexible. I suppose that means that you have had to always place a lot of trust in your team.
Trust is so important. You couldn't do it unless you trusted everyone. So yeah, absolutely.
And does your husband, is that what he does now? Like, does he want to ever go back to work, or is he happy doing this?
We do have discussions about this. I think sometimes he does miss, I guess, the buzz of being in the office and the responsibilities. But then on the other hand, we have a 4.5-year-old, and he now starts school, so he's on a lot shorter days. So he then supports me more on sort of pickups and drop-offs, and I think it seems to work that way. And I think moving forward, I'd like him to have, I guess more of a carved out role for him to have the responsibility and have something that he can own himself. I think would be good.
Yeah. With which business do you think that would be within?
Well, it's actually my dream, and I'm trying to really persuade him. It's my dream to have my own print studio and do the graph machine and do screen printing and do a lot more, and do maybe workshops and things like that would be my dream. And I'm hoping that he would sort of, I guess, really take that on in terms of looking after the print studio, and I guess be that kind of the technician and know how to do it all, and really, because he does he's quite arty himself, although he doesn't sell any of his work currently. He does lino printing, which he's actually really good at.
That could sit really nicely within it.
Absolutely, and that's what I thought could be really interesting. So that's kind of my aim, but we're probably a few years off that, but I think that could be really good.
Maybe when school days become a bit longer.
Yeah.
Talking about branding first, what does branding even mean? Because for some people that means a logo, and for some people it means a lot more than that. So what does it mean?
Oh, it's a really difficult question, this one. Branding, and I think over the years it started to mean different things as well. And I think it's probably twofold. And I mean, it definitely is more than a logo. I think the misconception is, oh, I'm having a rebrand, I've changed my logo. I think it does go much deeper than that. I think sort of internally, it's the, it's the vision, it's the attributes your product or service has, it's the personality mixed with, I guess, the visual output of that, and the tone of voice and how that's all packaged up, and all those components make the brand. But it's also, I guess, on the flip side, it's what your customers or clients see on the other side. It's their perception of you, and that's really important. It's, perception is reality. I was having that conversation with somebody I worked with yesterday, and it really is that, it's that whether people love you or not, or buy into your service or your product, is, I guess, the effect of the brand and what that brand means to the end user.
Do you think branding has, that sort of thing has changed throughout the years? Because obviously right now things are so instant. If we're not attracted to something visually first, the time span we will dedicate to it is shorter nowadays, isn't it? Yeah. So has that changed how you do branding?
I think it's really interesting. I think there has been a real shift in the last few years, but I think you're absolutely right. People, in terms of the customers and the clients, the visual output is definitely very much what you'll take out of it. But actually, I think in more recent years, there's been much more emphasis in the branding side of really understanding, your brand purpose, your why, understanding your DNA, what makes you unique, really understanding your personality, and really trying to connect with customers and clients on an emotional level. And I think that's much more important than it's ever been before, that emotional connection.
Absolutely. I think, we'll talk more about it, but I was very lucky and I won your brand competition. So you've been working on my branding.
Yes.
And I think that it was actually a little bit what we talked about. I figured I could just relaunch it really quickly. But then I started thinking about the website and all the bits that you guys did around the wording and the thought process and the writing bit has actually made me think actually the website probably needs to completely change to fit in with that. So it's going to take a bit longer than I thought.
Yeah, it does. The rebrand process does take a lot longer than people think. And actually what's interesting is that I've been through the same process recently, and you're like, oh yes, and it affects this and it affects that, and trying to make sure that it all kind of hangs together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so much more, I could easily change the logo and everything. That wouldn't take me that long. But very much going back to the drawing board and thinking about your values and your whys and all those things means that it's going to take a lot longer, I think.
Yeah. But I think it's a case of, if you do it properly, then it really future-proofs you, which I think is great and worth doing, rather than thinking, in a year's time that you've got to rebrand again. I think that's the idea, that you kind of really have those values, and those shouldn't really change that much. They might evolve with, the current market and what's going on around you, but actually the fundamentals should be retained.
Yeah. And I think that's also the future proofing is why. So you guys obviously, I'm going to do a bit of an IGTV things on it and show, the different variations and stuff further down the line. Once I launch, I don't give it away. Yeah. But it's also why I went with one option over the other in the end, because I felt like this might future proof what I'm going to do, where I want to take the business in the future more. It's been a very interesting thought process.
Well, that's good. That's great that it's making you think about bigger things.
Yeah. And what do you think? What difference can it make for a business to have work with someone like an agency on their branding?
Yeah, I think. Probably back me up whether you think the same. I feel like it can really help you give clarity and to your direction of where you want to take the business, rather than just sort of a snapshot of right now. It's sort of giving you that kind of looking forward of how you might want to grow or develop or how. And I think that really helps. And I think you talked before about not having a lot of time, and I think especially if you're running a small business, you will have lots of things. You will wear many hats and have very, limited time. So I think the more focused you are with your branding, the better the outcome to the customer, but also on your time as well. So you can sort of, rather than sort of trying to be too many things to too many people, I think having that real strong vision really helps.
Yeah, I think that will really help me when I start using the new branding and not be so all over the place. Especially, I spend a lot of time faffing over colors, as we talked about before. But, it takes a long time sometimes when you keep changing your mind.
Yeah.
So for a solo entrepreneur like myself, working with an agency might be feel like a really big step. Do you work with lots of small companies? How do you work?
We tend to work with a cross section. Actually, we work with large, medium, and small agencies. We like the mix. That it gives us. I think we find that there's potentially more creative freedom with smaller clients, and then there's always the challenge of the excitement, I guess, with bigger clients, the impact that, and the amount of people that it reaches. So there's kind of, I guess, different things that we take out from the different types of projects and clients that we work on. And I think that mix is really important for the creativity within the studio. In terms of, I guess, smaller companies working with us, I think we're really mindful. I think sort of it can be quite, I guess, daunting working with a design agency if you've been, like you said, you've been doing everything on your own. But I think we always look at everything from the point of view of the customer when we're doing work, especially we do work with a big retailer in the States. We always think about that end user. And I think we do the same in the process with our clients to sort of put ourselves in their shoes. And I think we really try and sort of, I guess, handhold with the process. And we joke about setting homework, which obviously you would have had, but I think it helps. No one knows your brand better than you do when you're working. And I think that's really important to remember. And don't think that, we know more than you about your business, because of course we don't. But what help you do is really bring to the forefront, I guess, the most important bits of the business, and the bits that really you should be shouting about, and that make the kind of the key elements of your brand.
And I think that is great. I mean, I thought it was really interesting to work with all of you rather than work with, if I were to do my branding, if I had not won this competition, if once I saved up enough to have it done for me, I would have probably, ended up only feeling comfortable with approaching another solo entrepreneur sort of thing. So I think that now you get so many more points of views, which is amazing.
It's great. And that's, when I pulled the team together, for me, it was really important to have that real mix and different points of view. And also we've got a copywriter who's going to approach things differently from a designer. So you get that holistic approach on it.
The competition you have, you've done it once before?
Yeah, once before. We ran it to launch. We redesigned our website at the end of last year, and we wanted to do something, I guess, a bit out there. So we thought, well, we run a competition to give away our expertise. We thought that kind of fitted quite well, and we had some great applicants. But our favourite was the botanical baker, who just does awesome things with cakes. And so we worked with her, and really pleased with the results, and we really enjoyed the process as well. Enjoyed working with a smaller company. And during lockdown and COVID and kind of knowing what was going on in the industry, we really wanted to give back. And actually we were quite fortunate that we weren't extremely busy, but we had enough work to keep the team ticking over, which is really important for me. Thought, how can we give back? So we thought, by running a competition for small businesses for our design services, we thought that could be really good.
And I think Claire's business, the botanical baker, and my business, I think that, it means something completely different to us. That to win something like that we would have had to work years for, maybe, to achieve otherwise. I think that must be a challenging and exciting thing to work with. But it's also really meaningful that way, because we could maybe not have imagined that would happen. Whereas, big companies, that I suppose is more about the commercial, whereas when you work with solo entrepreneurs, it's more about the emotional.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it means a lot hearing you say that. I think that's what, we wanted to do, is kind of, give an opportunity to people who, might not have the money to work with a design agency. So I think that's kind of what our aim was.
What advice would you give to someone that is thinking about a rebrand? Because you also did it for Judy Andrews recently, right?
Yes, yeah. My advice would be, and I've been trying to say this to my sister as well, who's been thinking about launching a brand, part of her business, is you need to kind of get all your thoughts out onto a piece of paper, and it really helps that kind of, before you start thinking about logos or colours or anything like that, you almost just need to kind of really understand who you are and what your business is all about. And the simplest way that I explain this is I explain to my sister, is get 2 coloured post-it notes or packs of post-it notes and put one of what your brand is and then what your brand isn't. And sometimes really defining what your brand isn't is as helpful as what your brand is. You can look at all those words that you've got written down of what your brand is, and then you start to narrow them down. You say, well, what is your top 3? And then from those 3 you can start to work out, well, maybe what your brand DNA is. I find that really massively useful. And I think if you're an independent brand and doing this all yourself, I think it's also important to write down on a piece of paper, I guess, what you want to get out of it. What do you want to achieve? And it's taking it from out of your head and putting it on paper just makes such a difference. And I always work with big A3 pieces of yellow paper, because yellow is my favorite color. I just find it really helps just to get it all scribbled out there, and really kind of think about that, and think about who's your customer, and what are you currently, if you're doing a rebrand, what were you doing well before that you take with you, and what were you not doing so well that you leave behind. And I think it's important not to just throw out the baby with the bathwater when you're doing a rebrand, because there might be some real positives that you can take with you. And actually, I've got I've got a blog post of my rebrand process on my website, actually.
Oh, I can link that in the show though.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just, I think it's quite interesting, and I've actually got some of my yellow scribble sheets because I think it's just, I think that to me is the starting point. And maybe speak to other people, see what what's or your customers, and see what the current perceptions are of your brand, because there might be some real positive things that you hadn't even thought of that could be really useful to take with you on your rebrand.
That is so interesting. And you first showed me the first concepts. I asked a few people, and it is widely varied how people perceive you. It was such an interesting thing to do, to speak to people. I mean, I don't know if it made me as much as I appreciate everyone's input, I think as a Libra it probably made me less decisive than more decisive, but that's more a personality thing, I think. But I think it's really important. It's really interesting. And also, even if you're not going to do a rebrand right now, I think it's a really interesting exercise to do.
Oh, totally agree. Yes. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's all about giving you focus. I think that's, and I keep talking about that, but I think it's so important to have.
And I think it can help with everything in your business if you find that focus, not just how you view your brand, but it helps how you talk to your customers and your social media or whatever it might be, right?
Absolutely.
So what do you find is the most challenging with running your own brand like Judy Andrews?
Oh, that's really good. I actually did a chat on stories yesterday. For me, the biggest, most difficult part is marketing. I work with lots of marketing companies or, marketing departments as part of my Tickety Boo, but you're working, that's not, we are the design side, we're not the marketing side. And I think it's always harder when it's your, it's you, but, as a person. I think that's quite hard. So I'm trying to do a lot more planning, and so just guess, with my social media at the moment, it's just random. It's just what I think of that during that day, and it has no structure. So I need to really kind of focus on that. And the other side is I love the designing and the producing and the branding and all that side of things, but I guess it's the sales as well is something something that I really need to focus on.
Yeah. Have you ever, has that always been secondary to you?
Yes, it has. I mean, it's one of those, it's really interesting things, I guess, because I guess the Tickety Boo is what gives me my income. There's not so much of a reliance for Judy Andrews to make me money, but I guess I want it, to me, it is a business as well. So I need to treat it as such and be more mindful of that side of things, especially if I want to grow it, which is what I want to do. So it's that, I guess it's that balance of everything.
Yeah, I guess you've probably been treating the businesses quite differently.
Very differently. Yes. As I said, I don't have dedicated time currently to Judy Andrews. It's kind of bits here and bits there. So yeah, it's sort of trying to sort of take a step back and treating them both, you know, well, not equally, because they're not equal in terms of my time. It can't be at present.
No, but even with the tasks you do in the little time that you have for Judy Andrews, maybe sales, for example, need to be part of that.
Yes, exactly. Which is why I keep coming back to being, you know, focused. I don't have a lot of time. So if I'm more planned through and it's all more thought through, then really save me time and also be stronger as a result.
I tried the whole thing of planning out my Instagram more, for example, and social media marketing, but I find it really hard to post something I wrote 2 days ago.
Yeah. And I haven't really, I think I did like a couple of weeks where I planned them, but I not understand what you're saying, because I feel like it's one of those things that Instagram should be instant, shouldn't it? So,
well, yeah. I mean, I do have a plan, but I realize the plan for me is very broad. Like, you know, on Wednesdays, I post now about my Friday sessions. So that's one post. And then I have one about a new blog post every other week. But I don't write the caption until in the moment.
Oh, that makes sense, to make it relevant, or as most relevant as it can be.
Because otherwise I rewrite it anyway, and I've written it twice.
Yeah, and that's a waste of time, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you sell now with Judy Andrews? Where do you sell?
I just mainly sell online on my online shop, but I also have an Etsy shop, and I also work with an amazing online stockist, Mason Archives, who stocks my t-shirts, who's opened me up to a slightly different audience, which has been great actually. And I want to look at kind of, you know, how do I broaden that and maybe work with more wholesalers, and also I want to work more on the PR side, so I can kind of get myself and my brand out there more.
Yeah, and that's exciting. Yeah, that's a good way to sell yourself, I suppose, too.
Yeah.
Wholesale, how does that feel to you?
I think it's quite daunting, if I'll be honest. And I know that it could be really interesting or really good for me, but I guess it's sort of, where do I start?
Yeah, it is something maybe, you know, if your husband is going to continue to work in your business, it could be divided up, you know?
That's really interesting, actually. I think that could be, so he could start to build the relationships with the retailers. Yeah, that could be really interesting.
Yeah, you can work more as a team. That might be, you know, rather than him only packing orders.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to, you know, it can be done in the amount of time you have. I think this is one thing that keeps coming up, you know, when I have conversations. I don't have time to start wholesale, but it's really only the first bits, like figuring out your pricing and your catalogs and stuff. That is time consuming. So that's interesting. And how do you approach getting new clients for Tickety Boo?
This is a good question. We've been really lucky, and having most of our clients have come from word of mouth or previous connections in my previous work, which has been brilliant, and I guess was definitely sort of the starting point. And then we do a lot of sort of networking. LinkedIn has been really good, sending out messages through LinkedIn. People who know people, in terms of getting potential new business that we've got coming up, mumbling. So yes, it's definitely the current market is definitely a challenge. Trying to get new business. I think partly is why I'm going to concentrate more on the PR and marketing side for Tickety Boo as well. We do some thought leadership on LinkedIn, which seems to be working well in terms of.
Oh, what is that?
So that's what we write. It's a blog. We write a regular blog on Tickety Boo, which we share on LinkedIn. We had one that went live yesterday, all about the importance of brand guidelines.
Okay.
So we try to sort of have those conversations and give our knowledge, and looking at sort of future of retail, and looking at various other pieces. And we found that actually in the last month or so, we've actually had a few people contact us directly, which is quite my experience in working in design industry is quite rare. So we're really excited about that, and always interesting to know how they've, you know, discovered us.
Yeah.
And so we had somebody that a new business opportunity that had discovered I'd done the branding for Sketch Appeal and knew that I'd done it and got in contact that way. So you just never know.
That's exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. So yes, and we've got another new business meeting. Again, came straight through, I guess, cold calling next week, which we're really excited about. So.
And do you find during the lockdown and everything that happened, did it mean changes for you guys? Was any project delayed or anything? Did it have an impact?
It did. I mean, it had comparative to other people. It was a small impact, and we definitely had less work. But luckily, we had enough work that I didn't have to make any redundancies to kind of see us through. But I would love to get some more clients just to solidify the work kind of coming into the studio.
That's a lot of responsibility. I suppose that's also how your two businesses are very different. You know, with Judy Andrews, you're only responsible for you and I guess your husband to a certain extent.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very much my role in Tickety Boo, I guess, you know, responsible for getting the new business in and making sure that the team's happy and looked after. And that's a big part of my role. Just had everyone's reviews recently, actually, where I'm trying to make everyone feel really empowered. I think that's really important for people's growth. And I think that builds back to what we were talking before about trust. And I think it allows them to grow as well, which I think is really important. Any role that you're in a company, that you need to feel like you're always learning. I think the time that you feel like you stop learning is maybe the time to move on. So I don't want everyone to feel sort of, you know, motivated and inspired and feel part of something great. So that's my aim always, to try and make the team feel like that.
That's good, because I feel like sometimes when I've been in businesses where people have started working from home for maybe family reasons, it's almost like that stops their progression, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah, it's such a...
It shouldn't be like that.
No, absolutely shouldn't be like that. And I think we use this in new business meetings, that what we say is, you know, getting people working from home, or getting, you know, opening up to working people part-time, means that we can tap into some amazing resource that maybe other design agencies can't, because of how we work. I'm really fortunate that, you know, that I have been able to pick up some amazing talent the way that we work, which has been brilliant.
That's exciting. So who would your dream stockist be for Judy Andrews?
Oh, this is a good question. There's lots of great independent shops. I feel like that's probably my best, or where I'd really like to be. There's the Unlimited shop in Brighton that I absolutely love. I think they're awesome. I feel like it's about trying to be in good company as well, isn't it? Kind of, I love all the stuff that they have in there. And I have actually probably everyone's dream to be in places like Selfridges or Liberties.
Either or, yeah. A lot of people, whether they say it out loud or not.
But I'd also, I'd like to, I think for me, I want to sort of, I like that idea that in smaller brands, you kind of get discovered, you know, I guess around the country, rather than it just being, you know, in London. I think that I like that idea.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? And also, I mean, buyers are generally nice, but you can build a longer standing relationship with smaller buyers, I think, which is nice. I guess your side hustle is a bit different to most people's side hustles, because most people start a side hustle with the view of that one day becoming their like full-time thing. But I'm guessing, since you're running Tickety Boo Creative, do you want to do an element of both always?
It's a really good question. I feel very fortunate that I can do both, because I guess they fulfill different parts of what drives me. I love what Tickety Boo brings me is creative problem solving, which I love doing for other brands. And I also love running and managing a team. I think, to me, it really fulfills me, and I love seeing people grow and seeing the, you know, the ideas that they have. And I think what I find really interesting, although you wouldn't think it, they do help each other in terms of my thinking and my approach. So I, as part of Judy Andrews, I'm a part of amazing community, online creative communities of, looking at sort of understanding how to do social media and connections with customers. And then I take that over to my Tickety Boo side of things. And then how we approach kind of the big branding projects is then how I then bring it back to, I guess, Judy Andrews. So they kind of cross fertilize each other, but they are very different. And actually, interestingly, when I had my very first business meeting in America with my American client, I actually took them all mini prints from Judy, from my work. My work. And to me, I was like, no, this is me. I was sort of literally just set up the Tickety Boo name. I had a couple of, regular people that I worked with. And I thought, this is me. I'm not some big shiny design agency. I am, we are a small independent one, and I'm going to do things a little bit differently. And they went down brilliantly. And I feel like that's something that I don't want to lose in Tickety Boo. I don't want us to grow to be a massive team. I like the fact that we're small, and I think that works really well.
And I guess, because you encourage flexible working, that goes for yourself too. So you could potentially always do both.
Yes, which is great. So yes.
And what would your dream client be for Tickety Boo Creative then?
Oh, this is a good question. I love working with brands that need help. I think for me, it's never brands that are doing really, like Coca-Cola or Nike, although I know there's lots of design agencies that would love to work with them. It's ones that would really, I feel like we can really make a difference. My background is actually supermarket design, and I'm a real nerd. I actually can't go shopping without taking photos of supermarkets. And I've recently discovered Farm Foods, actually.
Yeah.
They're I've literally never heard of them, but I think they're very similar to Iceland. And I just think they've got a lot of potential, I think is interesting. I'd also love to work with Sainsbury's. They don't need as much help, I don't think, as Farm Foods, but another.
Why Sainsbury's out of the UK supermarket?
It's a good question. I feel like, again, I've worked with Tesco in my previous role quite a bit. So, I'd love to work with Tesco again, but I feel like they kind of know what they're doing. Not that Sainsbury's don't know what they're doing, but I think for me, Sainsbury's, I think, was brilliant a few years ago, and I think now there's potential to really differentiate themselves from the other markets. I think there's a big opportunity there.
I feel like maybe it's one of the challenges a lot of larger retailers have. There's a lot of them that has lost their identity a little bit, and maybe they can start thinking outside the box a bit more and go back to what they are all about.
Yes. It's kind of, it's kind of, going back to the roots. And I guess this whole, to the whole process of, what's working, what's not working. And I think it's a case of, yes, I know that they've all, I guess COVID supermarkets would have been successful. But I think also customers are much more savvy these days and are wanting more from their brands. They're demanding.
Yeah, but successful for what reason? Like out of necessity, not necessarily because they were doing things right.
Yeah. I think that's correct. I think it's a case of, because of, people eating out less and because of necessity. Yeah.
When it comes to good design and working with a branding agency, there is so many small businesses listening to this, what sort of costs are involved in rebranding? Is that I know it's going to be vastly different for everyone, right? But if it's kind of scary, I suppose, as a small business to even approach it and thinking it's possible if you don't know what sort of numbers you're talking about. Like, is there something you should have in mind when you start approaching agencies and designers?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a big difference between, you mentioned it earlier, between, I guess, a freelancer or a single person as opposed to a full team that you would have on a project. So there is that price difference. And I think it's interesting because I guess in terms of money side, always difficult to talk about money.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Why? Especially as women, we need to stop that.
I know. But I think it's the case. We will look at a project. We do have a day rate card that we work to, but we also look at, I guess, how much we want to work on the project versus, what we can get out of it in terms of, sort of, is it giving back? So, for example, we've recently worked with the Sad Girls Club in the States, which is a charity for young women, sort of specialising in mental health, and they run workshops, and they have a massive online community, and they're doing amazing stuff, and they're really ambitious. They basically want to reduce suicide rates within teenagers. So what they're trying to achieve is just wonderful and amazing. And when we were got the opportunity to sort of pitch on the work for them, we bear that in mind, that they are a charity, so I guess we looked at the cost accordingly. I think it's a case of, don't be afraid to approach design agencies. If when they give you the cost you can't afford it, I guess there might be some negotiation, or there might not be, but I wouldn't never feel bad about approaching them and finding out, because they might do if they love your brand and see a big opportunity for them in terms of amazing case study for their website, there could be an opportunity to do something that's maybe more within their budget.
Yeah, I feel like maybe approaching a design agency is the feeling that I can liken this to is maybe walking into, a designer store you can't afford. Like, that pretty woman kind of moment. And it doesn't have to be like that, people are friendly generally.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we like to think that we are approachable, and, would absolutely have a conversation with someone who might not be able to afford us, but we can maybe, have a chat with them and work out, whether we could make it work, or maybe just top line give them some advice anyway. I think we would be always happy and open to that, because like you said, people are people, and you've got to appreciate, we wouldn't want anyone to ever feel like they were kind of walking into a designer store with us. I think whenever we do talk to people, even people within industry, we make sure that we don't sort of use loads of jargon, and we talk, we are down to earth, because I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think even more so now than ever before, we'll go back to that. We want to deal with people, not robots.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And also, if their budget is more in line with working with a freelancer, then I suppose you can talk about them and maybe point them in the right direction of like what they should expect.
Yeah. Yeah,
their budget.
Exactly. Yeah, we'd be happy to support that. Yeah.
So what is happening this autumn? So this podcast will go out in season 4, so it will be October to December. What is happening in your business during that time? Businesses.
Well, for Tickety Boo Creative, well, for both businesses, as I mentioned before, I'm really looking at PR, and at the moment we don't really do very much at all. And I have a couple of sessions with Lucy Werner, who Hype Yourself. So I'm hoping that could be sort of a real catalyst. I read the book while I was on holiday and feeling very inspired, and I think that
I need to pick it up.
And I've got lots of worksheets to work through, and I think that could be really really interesting for both businesses. And yeah, with Tickety Boo, I guess we're coming up to, actually it's interesting, Christmas kind of usually is done and dusted by now. In fact, we finished it a few weeks ago. So in terms of, we probably, thinking about creative for planning for next year on some of our retailers. New business is an ongoing process, and as I said, really enjoy that side of things. But it's sort of always ongoing. And what we find with Tickety Boo, it can take 6 months to a year, sort of turning any kind of conversation into actual work. So that's always a long term process. And then in terms of Judy Andrews, I guess it's coming up for Christmas, so I want to make sure that I'm in a really good position to be able to, I guess, really push the business at that time. I think it's a good time to really, I guess, go for more of the sales side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Confident. I'm confident with the design and the product. It's more, I guess, getting it people to know about me and know about my work and getting it out there.
Well, now when you've done your rebrand, and I suppose now is the time to make yourself visible and put yourself out there.
No, I know, which I'm trying to do. Yes.
It's always a bit scary, isn't it? No. But also exciting.
Yeah. I feel like I always love, I guess, being in the deep end of life and pushing myself. So I see this as, very much, I guess, a big learning curve for me, and something that I'm actually really enjoying the process of. So
that's really, really wonderful. Well, Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before I let you go, would you share how people can find both of your businesses and connect with you?
Yes, of course. Well, firstly, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our chat. It's been really, really good. So for Tickety Boo, it's Tickety. You can find us online, typography-based.co.uk, and on Instagram, it's We Are Tickety Boo. And for Judy Andrews, well, I've got my website is judyandrews.co.uk, and on Instagram, Judy Andrews unfortunately was taken, so we have Judy_Andrews_. So that's how you can find me.
I will put them both in the show notes too, and all the links, because it can be hard to remember these things.
I know.
Thank you so much for chatting and coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed hearing more, and it's always nice to learn new things. I love learning new things, so thank you so much.
No worries. Well, thank you, and yeah, I really enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy, for taking the time to come on the podcast and chat with us and share so much about your journey and some of your tips as well. And thank you so much to Judy and everyone at Tickety Boo Creative for helping me with my branding. I am so excited to finally be sharing it with everyone, and I feel so privileged that I had the opportunity to work with you all. So thank you so much. And lastly, thank you to all of you who are listening to Let's Talk Shop. I love sharing these episodes with you all, and I hope that you still enjoy listening. In next week's episode, which will be the last of the season, I am going to do a solo episode, and I'm going to be talking about the most common sort of reasons, excuses I hear when it comes to starting to wholesale and growing your wholesale. That is things like not having enough time, not being sure if you're ready, not being sure if your products are ready, and so many more. So I'm going to be chatting about that in next week's episode. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss that episode. And if you have a moment and you enjoy this podcast, I would really love it if you would leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, as it really helps other people discover the podcast too. Lastly, last favor is I love seeing where you guys are tuning in, so please do share the podcast over on Instagram. You can tag me at small_business_collaborative, and this obviously really helps others discover the podcast as well. And it's always nice to see who's listening, since it's kind of just numbers on the dashboard otherwise. So thank you so much for taking the time to share, and I hope that you have a wonderful start to 2021 and that you have a great week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you will tune in next week. Thank you so much.